Hello everyone, this is Damon with PixNub Software. For this video, I'm going to be discussing the print dimensions and the resampling in face crop. Now this has caused a lot of confusion in the past, so I hope I can explain it a little bit better in this video to where I can help anybody out that may have been confused by these settings. Now the first thing that the print dimensions do is sets the aspect ratio to the document. So if we're 8 by 10, it's going to give us 8 by 10 aspect ratio. You can see that this looks like an 8 by 10 aspect ratio. Now if I set this to 4 by 5, it's going to give us the same exact crop, assuming that our crop values are the same, because this does not determine where it crops. This only determines the aspect ratio and how the face is placed and sized onto the image is determined by these settings. So watch the video before where I talk about the algorithm settings. But if I crop this at 4 by 5, since that aspect ratio is the same, it does indeed give us the same exact crop as the 8 by 10. Now if I change the aspect ratio to 4 by 4, for example, it'll give us a square crop. So let me demonstrate that real quick. So you can see that now we have a square crop, and if I had to put this at 10 by 10 or something else that was square, it would give that same exact crop. Now the difference is with these, where the print width and height comes into play as far as the actual numbers, the difference you get in 8 by 10 versus 4 by 5 is the difference in the print settings for your file. And I'm going to do this with the resampling turned off. So let's do a test preset here. And so this is where people get confused when they come in here and they see, okay, I've only got 207 pixels per inch, but my image was 300 pixels per inch to start, and now I've got 207. And also, I've only got here 2075 pixels tall, and so the image size is different than it was to start out with, and that's because it's cropped off a bunch of pixels, and so it does not resample by default. So the dimensions left over are what's left over after cropping. The resolution is just a function of the dimensions divided by the print size. So let's say we're telling this to print 5 by 4 and we're doing this same crop. We're still going to get 2075 pixels, but now our resolution is 415 pixels per inch because we're going to print those same amount of pixels over a smaller area. So let me demonstrate this again. If I change this to 4 by 5, let me run this again, and it should give us that same 2075 pixels or something very close to that. And then it got it the exact same size again. And then 415 pixels per inch because we're printing over a 4 by 5 area. And if we had told it to print, let's say a 16 by 20, we would only have 103 pixels per inch because we still only have 2075 pixels. So I think I'm going to actually go into Photoshop again. So if this still doesn't make sense, I hope I can explain this in Photoshop doing this manually. Okay, so this image starts out at 3,200 pixels by 4,800 at 300 pixels per inch. And that gives us 16 inches by 10.6 inches. And it's just strictly math, 4,800 pixels divided by 300 pixels an inch. The print size is set to 16. If we wanted to print this as a 20 by 13, we've got 240 pixels per inch. I'm just going to cancel here. Now, if I'm going to crop this, I'm going to manually crop this to 8 by 10. I'm going to zoom way in just to exaggerate this here. All right, let's say I crop way in on the face here. A lot closer than you would probably ever crop, but just to really exaggerate this. Okay, we've still got 300 pixels per inch, but remember that's not the sole determining factor by the resolution of this image because we've only got 828 pixels. So in order to be 300 pixels per inch, it's only going to print that at 2.76 inches by 2.2. Say, well, we don't want that. We want to print 8 by 10. Well, yeah, you can do that, but now you've only got 82 pixels per inch. That is unless you resample. Now, if you resample, you can make this whatever you want. You can say, okay, I want my 3000 by 2400 pixels an inch, or 3000 by 2400 pixels. I want 8 by 10 at 300 pixels per inch. Well, you can do that, but it has to resize your image and upsize in order to do that in this case, because just to make 3000 pixels where you only have 800 and some, you can't do that without resizing. So you see that in that case, this becomes blurry, or just, I mean, not too bad, but it's not tack sharp because we upsized by, 300 and something percent, 350% or so. And so keep that in mind, and that is the reason why this resample is turned off by default. Now you can turn this on, and I'm going to demonstrate here that if I turn this on and give this 8 by 10 at 300 pixels per inch, let's test the preset. This will give us a 2400 pixel by 3000 pixel document, 8 by 10 at 300 pixels per inch. Now in the case of this document, it had to upsize that. I believe this was 207 pixels an inch at 8 by 10, if I'm not mistaken, without resampling. So it had to upsize by about 45 or 50% in order to achieve this. Now, that may not be noticeable that much. I mean, I can tell it's a little bit, it's not quite tack sharp, but it's a little bit blurry because it upsized by 50%. But that's why this is off, because there's no way for this program to know what size of images you're going to give it. And so in order to prevent it from upsizing and degrading your image quality, it leaves that off. Now let's go back to the original again here. And then I'm going to really exaggerate this just to make it very obvious. So let's say you were going to crop images that are already downsized for the web. So let's say your images are 160 pixels by 240 to start with. So say you have a bunch of web images, which there's not much detail in them because they're only displaying on the web a small size. Okay, you can still use face crop with the standard presets with the resample turned off, 8 by 10 aspect ratio. If you run the preset, it's going to give you a crop with an 8 by 10 aspect ratio. And again, it's going to put the head in the position where the preset settings are. So it's still going to position everything correctly. It's just a smaller resolution because the image was tiny to start with. So if we look at the image size now, we started out with 240 pixels tall. We're down to 102 because we cropped off more than half of the height of the image in order to make that crop. But it did not resample, so the actual image quality is the same, although small. All right, now let's say that we want to take this and make this image 8 by 10 at 300 pixels per inch. Say we're forcing it, but we're starting out with a small image. And this is the reason why this is turned off in the standard presets. You can turn it on and save a preset. you'd have to save your new preset with this on. But with this on, and watch what's going to happen now. If we're going to force this image to 8 by 10 by 3000, now you can see that there's absolutely no detail left because we are now 3000 pixels tall because we started out with a web size image like this that had no resolution at all. And if the preset is set to resample 8 by 10 at 300, it's going to force that up to 2400 by 3000 pixels. So just keep in mind that while yes, you can force your image to whatever exact dimension you want, like I say, we see that this is 3000 pixels tall. Depending on how much you crop off and how many pixels you're left over with, you may have to upsize. It may downsize too. It's going to either upsize or downsize in order to get the dimensions you're telling it to. So just know what you're doing with your images for sizing before you just turn this resample on and blindly say you want 8 by 10 at 3000 pixels. Make sure you have at least that or something close to that left over when you crop so that you avoid seriously upsizing your images to get something that's not really achievable with your images. So when in doubt, just leave this off, put in your dimensions here, and that way it's going to crop to that dimension and then not resize. You're just left, your image is just whatever is left over after cropping. So that's what I recommend for the most part, leaving this off. If you're going to print, for the most part, leave this off. If you need a specific size, like say you're going to upload images to the web at a specific size, in that case, just make sure you have enough resolution. And in a perfect world, you'd be downsizing instead of upsizing. So say you're taking a very large image and making it something much smaller. So anyway, I hope that clears up any confusion with this and also explains what these values do. Anyways, thanks for watching.